Kia ora. We're going to start off by just sharing a little bit of what's happening at our schools. And to do that, I'm just going to share my screen for a minute and just let you know what it's been looking like from my perspective at my school over the last couple of years. Do that. Share and getting there. Okay. So what I'm assuming you can all see my screen now. We're looking at our school's perspective. I'm come from Epsom Girls Grammar, big school, over 2,000 students, so about 450 in each year cohort. And this is very much my personal perspective. I'm not speaking for my school. I wouldn't say that we actually have a voice for our school. It says, you know, what we think. But I do think it would be really great if every student was numerate when they left secondary school. And I do think this is a goal that's worth working towards. But in 2023 and 2024, we have just run ourselves ragged trying to teach both numeracy and mathematics when we actually don't even have enough time to teach the math curriculum. You know, we're very squeezed in terms of our timing per week. But we really plunged in 2023 to get it going. We assessed students for the CAA twice in year 10 in 2023. And then we did it again this year, twice in year 10. So we're always dropping off the ones that have already achieved it, right? But in 2024, this year, we had 100 students who did not achieve numeracy last year. So after 2 goes last year, they had not achieved. We put them in a course which specifically worked on preparing them for the numeracy CAA and also offered 2 internal standards. And we found that it was less than 20% of those students that actually achieved the numeracy CAA in May, which was really distressing for us because we'd put a lot of effort in. We tried to prepare them specifically for numeracy in year 10. We tried again in year 11, and we had not been successful. The only cheering thing was that we'd actually got 50% of them through the maths level 1 maths internal, which was many more than we had been expecting. So we'd been expecting, you know, to get some success with numeracy and less success with the new achievement standards, but it turned out to be the other way around. So next year, we are not going to teach numeracy. We are not going to assess numeracy. We are purely going to move our efforts into getting students to achieve standards. And the benefits of that is, even though when we surveyed our students in year 10, after they'd had a couple of goes at numeracy, and they were really strongly in favor of multiple attempts. They really felt they wanted more practice, more opportunities to give it a try so that they could eventually get there. But we did find for our year 11 students, they were the ones that had failed it twice and then 3 times in year 11 were getting really, really despondent about their chances of ever achieving it. And we will, whereas we think that actually students will be able to get 1.1 and 1.2 much more easily than for many students to ever get the CAA. So that's our plan. We're going to have everybody in year 11 will have the opportunity to achieve 2 achievement standards. And if they're in year 12 or 13 without numeracy, we are going to be running a senior numeracy course, which will again be doing 1.1, 1.2. And we'll be changing from our current model, which is an opt-out model, that is, we put everybody through except a few students that choose not to, or their teachers recommend them not to, into an opt-in model where it's very much, if you want to give it a go, sure, we'll give you practice materials, but we are going to be teaching and assessing maths. So what I've been given this platform, so I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about what I believe about numeracy, because I don't think we have it right so far. I really believe that the intention of the ministry in putting the numeracy requirement in is to get us to focus more on teaching our weakest students. And I really believe that for some students to get to numeracy, it's going to require sustained effort from them and support from us over 3 or 4 years. And we can pretty much identify those students at the beginning of year 9 to start putting the extra support in. And I don't see there's any strategy being put in place to do that. We've been working with non-math teachers, and they want to be able to teach a token amount of numeracy in their courses. That's what they would really like. Here, there's these defined lessons, we can deliver them, we tick numeracy off. They don't want to consistently focus the attention of their weakest students. And just, you know, that's not what I'm seeing happening in our school. It's not what I'm seeing happening in any other schools. And I think that's the direction we really need to be working towards. My personal opinion, I do believe numeracy is worth working towards, but we just still haven't quite figured out how to do it. Over to you, Halley.
Great, thank you very much, Marion, for that. So let me just quickly share my screen. So Kira, everyone. My name is Halley. I am one of the numeracy coordinators at Western Springs College. And to start off, our beginning bit, which was about 2021, I think it was, when we first started giving the idea of numeracy out to the rest of our teachers, we started off as numeracy across curriculums, and that's where I'm going to start. And this is our setup, as you can see. So we have our senior leadership team support to sort of do this numeracy and literacy across curriculum idea, this notion. We also did a department audit in 2021 to see what kind of numeracy and literacy ideas they're running in their own departments, in their own courses, and that happened also in 2021, and looked like most of the departments were on board in sort of sharing their views. We at the moment at WSC, we have 2 numeracy and 2 literacy coordinators. We are working together to support literacy and numeracy together. So even though I am tagged as a numeracy coordinator, we don't sort of project ourselves as numeracy coordinators. We say LitNum coordinators. And we try and do both literacy and numeracy together. Also, non-stream maths classes. So we've got mixed ability classes. So any sort of numeracy, especially in maths, gets delivered to all of our students in this mixed ability sort of setup. And CAAs, or using CAAs, is our main pathway towards numeracy and literacy. So no standards. We are not considering any NCA level 1 or level 2 standards to get our students numeracy or literacy currently. So that is sort of our setup at the moment with at WSC. Our current situation in 2023, we had our year 10s go through. In September, about 56.56% passed. Those who attempted passed. Quite a lot of absentees, and some of those then sat the May 2024 LitNum, and about 41 to 42% of those year levels passed, and also there's some absentees there, and the PD or the support that we gave to the teachers and the students was mostly about, well, how do we actually implement numeracy across curriculum? And that's something that we had to wrap our heads around. Have a chat with a few heads of departments about, well, what is it that they're struggling with, and then sort of give some focused PD and some generic PD. We created a preparation guide, which we sent out to all of the students, and sometimes even the parents too, which has all the information about what is literacy, what is numeracy, some helpful videos, past exam papers, and a few other admin things. We also started running workshops before the CAAs, just to ensure that we drive this idea of the process 1, process 2, process 3, the content, to ensure that our kids best know what they need to do before they go into the CAAs. Next year, it is still going to be almost the same, not very many changes. Still, the CAAs are the main ways to get literacy and numeracy. However, we are looking at a few extra things. Getting into touch with our Kahuiako new intermediate teachers and primary teachers to ensure that we have some data on these students who are going to struggle, and put some sort of support in place, but as Marion said before, to ensure that when they get to year 10, they have some structured support and they can get through numeracy, if not in year 10, at least in year 11. Find out more resources, digital and non-digital. At the moment, the numeracy coordinators, we are using EP, and also any other books, printouts, so on and so forth, as non-digital and digital resources. Planning to do another 2023-2025 department audit, analyze it, maybe even look at which one of those are related to our process ideas, and give our departments some feedback. So that's really our setup in terms of what's happening this year and next year. So a bit of a contrast to what Marion shared there in terms of what her school is going through. So if I suppose what I'm going to do is just Marion and I are going to do is just give you a little bit more insight into the things that you gave us through that form that you filled out, and then maybe at the end we'll have a Q&A session as well.
Is it all right if I give you one question now, Halley?
Yes, sure. Yes, please.
So the question in the chat is there much cross-school Kahuiako chat regarding numeracy at the moment, or is it just future plans?
I'm not sure I understand.
So between our school and the intermediates and primary schools, is there discussion around numeracy?
Yes. So the start of the year, I went to a meeting with all of the WSLs, and interestingly, a lot of our primary and intermediate schools' action plans over the next couple of years actually has literacy and maths, as they call it, and giving enough PD for them as well, for the teachers. So that's one that I saw, and also the upcoming next Thursday, we have a session with all the WSLs, and in that session, looks like numeracy is going to be one of the talking points. At the moment, apart from that, there is no other there's no other big chats happening between our schools, but at least that's a starting point, and hopefully things will develop next year.
Thanks.
Okay. So I will just exit mine, and off to you, Marion.
Okay, I'm going to move back to share my screen with you again. Just move back to here, and so we thank you all for filling out that survey we sent. I know we asked quite a lot because it's a very confusing landscape out there. There's a lot of different things that are happening at different schools. And we just want to get an idea. We got 31 people answering the survey, obviously not a random sample. And what we found out is that schools are doing a bit of everything. So 90% of responses were offering the CAA in year 10 and similarly in year 11. 50% of answers included doing numeracy through standards. 40% said they were using an opt-in model where teachers were selecting the students to do the CAA, and 15% were doing opting in by students, and 20% were using an opt-out model where most people were entered on a few students filled out. And generally students in year 12 and 13 without numeracy are then entered for the CAA. And it looked very similar for 2024 and 2025. This is numeracy teaching in schools in 2024. Numeracy teaching in math class, numeracy content in other subjects.
Sorry,
So-
Marion, your screen's not being shared at the moment.
My screen is not being shared. Okay, let's take a look. Why not? Oh, I see. Okay, let's go
Yep,
back.
there we are.
Right,
Good.
here we are. So the other thing you didn't really need, this is my screen sharing. Yep. Okay, we're all good. We've got sorry, this is 2025. Let's go to 24 this year. Okay. Most of the focus on numeracy teaching in math class happened in math class in year 10. Yep. A few schools mentioned numeracy content in other subjects. A few mentioned extra numeracy time with a math teacher, and we didn't specifically ask how much time that was. It would have been nice to know. And some mentioned extra numeracy time with another teacher, and a few said, one school said nothing. Okay. And if we change that to next year, what you can see is more schools are moving to year 9. So thinking about if we're going to be assessing in year 10, we have to be starting that teaching from year 9. And also recognizing that there's a lot of students who won't get it in year 10, will be doing it in year 11. And a lot more schools were mentioning numeracy content in other subjects for next year. But also more teachers saying nothing. Yep. So we do definitely have a bit of a shift to what schools are doing as they learn more about the numeracy and what's required. So in class this year, and we just tried to group the responses here. For about 25% incorporated numeracy into their teaching of the math curriculum. About 50% used numeracy type questions as lesson starters. Very few used a practice book or did specific numeracy practice as a regular part of their math curriculum. And a few didn't include any numeracy in their math teaching. I tend to use big N numeracy as something specifically preparing for the numeracy CAA, as opposed to small N numeracy, which we all teach in maths every day, you know? In other subjects, not much. A couple of people mentioned social science and science as including useful numeracy competence. 4 of the responses mentioned other support within the school, such as a numeracy coordinator or teacher aides or form teachers. Most responses mentioned there was talking, workshops, PLD, expectations, but many of those also mentioned little or no effective action. So what's happening? You know, there's kind of awareness and building awareness, but they're not seeing anything that's really making a difference to students yet. And when we asked about what resources your school is using this year, you can see most people were doing past numeracy assessments, the NSAMP practice questions, practice assessments, resources developed in your school, a quarter. some resources shared by other schools. About half of you are using the Walker Green Book, the Blue Book, and a few people here mentioned Sigma, right? So that's about 10% mentioned Sigma, about 10% mentioned Education Perfect, and exam math questions. So, you know, that's what's happening in resources. And when we asked about what strategy is your school using to identify students at risk of not gaining numeracy, 30% of you mentioned eASTL, 10% mentioned PAT, 50% mentioned teacher judgment or tracking, and 20% said none. And I'd just like to speak to the 30% of you who mentioned eASTL, just to make sure that everyone is aware that eASTL is not an effective measure of curriculum level for statistics and probability. It was not, it was never well designed for measuring curriculum level for statistics and probability for various reasons to do with test design, rather than that being the focus of the people who are designing it, rather than getting the correct curriculum level. So if you are using eASTL, you can be thinking about it for number and algebra, but I wouldn't say it was a particularly good measure for other things, particularly not stats and probability. Better at lower levels of curriculum, not so good once you get up to curriculum levels 4 and 5. Anyway, so that's where we are. Back to, Halley.
Great, thank you very much, Marion, and also for all of you who filled in that that survey. It's always nice to see what's happening in each other's schools, and it's a nice platform to share. So we also collated all of the questions that you guys asked in terms of what you wanted to discuss on this platform today, and we've sort of put together about they were themed into about 5 topics. So I'll quickly share what those look like. And the idea is that, yes, we all are going through something in our schools, but together we can actually share and answer those questions ourselves, and then we'll be able to send those results out, or your responses out from those discussions to everyone, so that the responses can be shared across. So let me just quickly. So these are the 5 topics that your questions fell into. The first one is strategies to support numeracy across curriculum. So that's sort of what I sort of went through quickly in my presentation. And the second one is differentiated resources and strategies to help our students prepare for the CAA. So any low ability students, or someone who, let's say, did fail the previous CAA, how can we actually help them? What kind of resources are we using? Giving feedback and feed forward. This is actually quite a big thing too. If the student failed, well, how do they know where they failed? And how can we then give them a bit of feed forward? Role of numeracy coordinators. So if you are a numeracy coordinator, then we'd definitely like to, or people in that chat would definitely like to hear from you. And weaving numeracy into maths curriculum. So this is where we are not sacrificing time in teaching maths curriculum, but actually weaving numeracy into maths curriculum, so that we can do both really well. So in a minute, the rooms are going to open, and if you think you feel very strongly about one of these topics, I suggest that you just go into that, start the discussion, and there is a way that you can give your ideas, or at the end put your notes out, and that is through these Curie Lives. So what I'll do is I'll pop into those breakout rooms. Don't worry too much about right at the start getting onto the Curie Live, but I will leave that Curie Live link and the pin in the chat. So at the end, if you want to just jot down your ideas, your notes, in each of those query lives that is respective to your room, that would be great. I will collate all of those and then send them all to you so that you can have a look at it at a point of your convenience. So Jared and Robin, is it fine for you to open the rooms?
Looks like Robin's opened those. So in terms of timing, are we thinking 10 minutes in there and then have the QE finished to come back?
Yep, sounds good.
Robin, does that work?
Sorry, yep, that's good.
Okay, cool.
We are, yeah. Okay. We're supposed to finish this in 1 minute. And so we really don't have time for any general discussion. But Halley, do you want to talk about that, how people can contribute to that query?
Yes, so the sessions are still live. So all you need to do is go into the chat, and if you can, I think you can see which room you're in, and it's pin. So all you need to do is, if you did not submit any responses yet, please take maybe a couple of minutes, go into Cure.live, enter the pin, and just jot down a couple of notes. I will collate all of them and send an email to all of you, and you can sort of go through those questions. If there are any questions, I'm happy to find